give me another analogy of the way I act in the world.
Right, Josh. Everyone in the world is a mouse, okay? And you're a mouse too. But sometimes I think you're a cat. You understand what I'm saying? You want to devour people and bring them into your own understanding of the life of the world, which is fine. Everybody has that hunger. But you do it almost playfully. Like a cat plays with their food. I saw a cat, Josh, right? And it had a spider. And it wouldn't kill the spider. It would just let the spider move away from it. And it grabbed it and brought it back. And it just did that for hours. And that's what you are. You're like, well, you gotta understand this. No, I want to leave. No! Understand. This is good. This is good. This is good for you. This is good for you. It's good for me. It's good for everyone. You understand? Josh, you have a mixture of depression and laughter. Why does Ben know me so well? I'm observant.
Oh dear. Give me another one, Ben.
Give me,
They're good.
Come on. Give me the good stuff.
Go on. I know you've been preparing for this.
Let's just say, Josh, it became the... You see when we write our book, and we need to describe each other, you're screwed, mate. You've got 3 sentences on me. You've only got 3 sentences about me. I've got 3 flipping chapters. Because I'm observant.
The life of a social terrorist.
Is that the title of the one for me or
No, for me.
Yeah. Anti-Josh.
Oh goodness.
You'll be anti-Josh because Antifa are actually fascist. You see what I mean? Oh my goodness.
Oh flip my neck.
Right, so this episode...
I encompass my opposite.
This episode is brought to you by Emma. She did all the notes.
Wait, seriously?
Yeah.
Is that why it's legible?
How
many pages is that?
6.
6.
Thing is, Josh, me and her had this really good idea. Somebody could send in notes or something.
We can plagiarize them.
And something that they feel is, and then we can discuss it.
That way, so
without them.
that way, maybe people would understand me a bit more.
I just need to read this.
Emma was complaining about you to me in the
No,
car
she was
one time.
complaining about. No, she wasn't.
She was.
This is
What?
a lie. She wasn't
What?
complaining about me.
Okay.
She wasn't. So whatever you have to say is false. So shut up. Turn on my light.
That's alright. Well, there must be a misunderstanding with that one.
Yes, Josh, you misunderstand everyone. As we've discussed. Alright, well, I've just discovered that Emma's notes is just a description of the book. Never mind.
Have you not prepared for this at all?
Josh, I've had no bloody time. I've only had a discussion with Emma about it. I know you read a bit of it.
Who told you that?
Emma. Because I said we had a discussion with it. Who told you I read Ruth after... Who told you I read Ruth after you told me to read Ruth?
How did you know?
Who told me I read... Who told you?
Who told you?
Who told you I read Ruth right after you told me to read Ruth?
Who told you? How did you know? There you go, man.
Alright, hello, folks. Welcome to ATT. This one's going to be rushed and fast and improvised.
Fast paced.
Because I'm going on holiday soon. Wah! And Josh was
Speed,
like,
power.
in the middle of my mad shenanigans of trying to get ready because of COVID, because of passports, because of a bunch of certificates and stuff that I need to get. Josh was like, hey Ben, got time to do a podcast? And I'm like, no, I don't have time to do a podcast. And then Josh goes, oh, well, I think you got time to do a podcast. And I went, no. And he went, yeah. And I went, no. And then here we are. We're doing a podcast because Josh is a very persuasive person. Anyway, so I said we're going to do Ruth. And that's about all the prep I did. There's a saying I like to use.
Don't count on Ben.
Don't count on them. Don't ever count on me for anything. No, there's a saying that I like to use when I talk about Ruth, for like relationships and stuff, for especially Christian relationships. So Josh, you're single, so you benefit from this.
Oh right, thanks, Ben.
Yeah, no problem. Also, Josh is single. Listen, if you're a girl, obviously, and you're wanting to understand how a good Christian woman should act, especially if you want to be a girlfriend or a wife, read Ruth. 100% read Ruth. And then likewise, if you're a guy, I find, and you're in that same sort of story, read the story of Jacob, and then swap, and then that's something to talk about.
Alternatively, if you are a person on the earth, you shall read Ruth
and
benefit
Jacob
from it.
Anyway, you probably couldn't. Yeah. So Ruth. Quick summary of Ruth. Basically, there's a character called Naomi and Elimelech. Anyway.
Yes.
So there's famine happening in the land of Judah, specifically Bethlehem, and they then migrate to Moab, and Moab is not really a god. It's a godless place where they have idols and stuff, and in Moab, Naomi's two sons marry these two girls called Ruth and Josh.
Begins with O. Why did you do this to Orpha?
Orpha. There we go.
Orpha.
Nice, Josh.
Orpha.
Orpha.
Did you do that because you didn't know?
I did. So Ruth and Orpha. Orca. Killer whale.
What's
She
your
will be.
speech?
Yes. And so she's got two daughters-in-law. Anyway, so Elimelech and his two sons die, basically, and it's really, very sad. And Naomi basically is like, there's nothing for me here anymore, and apparently the famine's lifted in Bethlehem, so she moves back, and her two daughter-in-laws, because they're hers by law kind of now, they're both like, oh, please take us with you. And then Naomi's like, look, the Lord has turned his back from me. There's no need. Turn back and sojourn in your own city.
Well, they basically said, she said, there's nothing for you here. Like, what am I to do? Where are you to wait until I bear a son for you to marry?
Yeah.
Will you just go to your own country, to your own gods, to your own people, and just find
go
husbands
back
there?
to what you're used to, basically, because there's nothing. What are you going to do? Wait for me to bear a son? All of that, what you've just said. Anyway, so Orpah's like, with tears in her eyes, basically says, okay, I will, and she turns. But then Ruth is very famously says, where you go, I will go. Your people will be my people, and your God will be my God. And that is what I want to focus on. This from this wee quick episode here. What does it mean to give up everything you've known for, just to on what very much looks like a limb? Naomi's been probably debating this for some time, and she says, right, pack my bags, I'm leaving. The Lord, she changes her name to Mara, which means bitter. The Lord has dealt bitterly with me, and she's quite depressed. And Ruth shows compassion on her and says, "I love you. You will be my mother, and I your daughter, and we will be happy."
Do you want me to read that?
Yeah, absolutely.
The passage of. So this is Naomi. Yep. And she said, "See, your sister-in-law has gone back to her people and to her gods. Return after your sister-in-law." But Ruth said, "Do not urge me to leave you or to return from following you. For where you go, I will go, and where you lodge, I will lodge. Your people shall be my people, and your God, my God. Where you die, I will die, and there will I be buried. May the Lord do to me, and do so to me, and more also, if anything but death departs me from you." And when Naomi saw that she was determined to go with her, she said no more.
Mm-hmm. So
those are powerful words.
They are.
That's a complete rejection of what she was, her whole identity as a Moabite, as someone who was apart from like the sort of people of God. You know, she rejects her home gods. Follow your God. That's completely renouncing of
I
oneself.
think of all the great dramas in the Bible, often the Bible, and especially in the Old Testament, focuses like sort of glosses over kind of major battles, and it's like, so for example, David, and then there's a battle, and then this, and then that, and then there's not really an exchanging of many words, especially in David and Jonathan's relationship. You can imagine there's loads of like conversation, but the Bible only really particularly talks about how, well, look, we're brothers now. I love you, you love me. Let's get this sorted. Whereas in Ruth, it's a really detailed story. It's 4 chapters long, but it's really detailed and powerful, and the exact words there. And Ruth was written during the time of King David. Ruth was David's great grandmother, and it's just a lovely wee story. I think a lovely wee story about a really devoted daughter-in-law who basically becomes a daughter, and this is how David comes about, really.
So, well, yeah. So Ruth ends up bearing a son who bears a few more sons, and then eventually David, right? Who eventually after that's Jesus.
Yes.
The line. So it's very interesting that from a foreigner, like an outsider, a Moabite woman, a follower of false gods, becomes like part of the line of Jesus.
If Ruth stayed in Moab, no Jesus, plain and simple.
Yeah,
which is just mind blowing. No, no Jesus, no David, no Solomon, and this is kind of the start. This is kind of the beginning, because I think it's a lot of people ask me, why does God let evil things happen or bad things happen and things like that? Well, he's not a nice God if he does that. And often I look at the story of Joseph first. He was thrown in a pit by his brothers, but then because of that, he ended up becoming the second most powerful man in Egypt. That all worked out. Here we have Naomi's family, her sons and her husband passing away, and she feels that God's abandoned her and dealt bitterly with her, as she says. But then what do you see here? Then you get this person who's devoted to her, and what was I saying?
Do you want me to help you out, Ben?
Yes, mate.
You're talking about, right? Why are you relating this to young women in particular?
Yeah, right.
Do you want me to help you out?
This devotion to her mother-in-law is astonishing. Is absolutely astonishing, and I think we can learn something by it, because it's a heroic thing. It's something you watch in a movie and tears come to your eyes. It's something that is somehow so perfectly and expertly crafted and written that had to make sense. That something that beautiful could develop something even more beautiful, which, as we know, was Jesus Christ. All right. That's the story. This is the beginning.
You missed half the story. So Ruth met Boaz.
Well, yes, there's the whole romance between. Obviously, Ruth didn't, like, there has to be some intrigue there. Ruth works the fields right.
So Boaz is a more powerful kind of guy. He's part of Naomi's extended sort of family. So Naomi doesn't have any sort of son to bear the name of her husband, so in that culture you'd have a redeemer, someone who would come and give you a son, so the husband's line would still continue. Yeah. So Boaz turned out to be one of these redeemer people, and those
Romeo in this story,
and essentially Boaz had some fields, people were working in the fields, but in that culture you'd leave gleanings. Okay, what's gleaning, Ben? What are gleanings?
It's like stuff of value that's left over from the fields.
It's like the corners or like the edges are left untouched, so like the more poor people can, have something to live on. Okay, I'll take it I'll take it from the start here from notes I've made. I made these notes an hour before I left here. I did not expect to rely on them, but there's so much in this story,
Absolutely.
and
This is where we
there's so much in this story.
This is the part where we transfer the episode that originally was going to be led by Ben, but whoa, now it's Josh. Wow, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, right, go.
Do you allow this, Ben?
I do allow this.
Yeah,
You have my
right.
consent.
So Ruth she's a foreigner. She's not a person in the kingdom of God's chosen people. She's a Moabite, a follower of false gods, no less. Right, but yet, through these strange circumstances of death, she has devoted herself in self-sacrifice to this widowed mother, her mother-in-law. Right, and in the passage, I'll read it again. Do not urge me to leave you or to return from following you. For where you go, I will go, and where you lodge, I will lodge. Your people shall be my people, and your God, my God. Where you die, I will die, and there will I be buried. May the Lord do so to me, and more also, if anyone but death parts me from you. That's so powerful, those words, okay? And then a few more sentences over. She's now gleaning, she's picking up gleanings in this field of Boaz's. Now, if you can imagine, what is gleaning? What does it represent? Okay, the process of gleaning is symbolically, it's necessary. It's a necessary precondition to life. Okay, and life does flourish after this process of gleaning. Okay, think about it. It's leaving things untouched at the edge, but you are gathering loads of stuff in, but you're leaving these things untouched. Okay, you're leaving a remainder not to be destroyed.
Yes.
Does that ring any bells of the whole Old Testament? Leaving a remainder, a remnant, is a precursor to life. Okay,
So life can start again.
yeah, it's like a union between order and chaos. Okay, with neither of which being destroyed. If I read chapter 2, verse 5 to 7. Then Boaz said to his young man, who was in the charge of the reapers, whose young woman is this? And the servant who was in charge of the reapers answered, She is the young Moabite woman who came back with Naomi after from the country of Moab. He said, Please let me glean and gather among your sheaves after the reapers. So she came, and she continued from early morning until now, except for a short rest. And if I read on, then Boaz said to Ruth, Now listen, my daughter, do not go to glean in another field, or to leave this one, but keep close to my young women. Let your eyes be on the fields that they are reaping, and go after them. For I do not charge. Have I not charged the young men not to touch you? And when you are thirsty, go to the vessels and drink what the young men have drawn. Then she fell on her face, bowing on the ground, and said to them, Why have I found favour in your eyes, that you should take notice of me, since I am a foreigner? But Boaz answered, All that you have done for your mother-in-law since the death of your husband has been fully told to me, and how you left your father and mother and your native land, and came to a people that you did not know before. The Lord repay you for what you have done, and a full reward to be given you by the Lord, the God of Israel, under whose wings you have come to take refuge. Then she said, I have found favour in your eyes, my Lord, for you have comforted me and spoken kindly to your servant, though I am not one of your servants.
I just want to cut in there. What images came to me there was just this perfect example of what Jesus is, in my opinion, an outsider, right? An outsider who does not serve God, who then is born again and comes into this different foreign land, this land of God, with these people of God. And Ruth is so full of these really deep words, I think. Even what Boaz said there, this you will be rewarded. Yeah, welcome. It's the words of welcome and reward and understanding, I think, is particularly bold to me. And you just look at that and you're like, well, is that not everyone's story? Anyone who comes to Christ, is that not everyone's story?
So if you look at this as you should, as we're so blessed to be able to look at the stories of the Bible through the lens of Jesus Christ.
Exactly.
Think about it in terms of Ruth being sort of just us, right? We're outsiders.
Ruth being people.
Okay, we are
sinners.
Sinners. We are Moabites, foreigners.
Worshipping false gods.
Yep.
With sinful backgrounds.
And you imagine Boaz being the Redeemer, right? So one to bring us into the line of the kingdom of God, and it's very interesting. What do you see Naomi as being? Okay, I'm gonna read a few things I've written, and I want you to answer hopefully correctly.
Okay.
So through what I just read is the recognition of worthiness to be a part of the kingdom, although a foreigner. Like that the worth is defined through the repentance and giving up of oneself. Okay, you're no longer part of your Moabite tribe. You no longer worship your false gods. You now you're part of my family. You've worship my God, X, Y, Z, etc.
And the reward that Boaz talks about is not just the reward in that present, it's the ultimate reward. Because as we've discovered, David and then Jesus.
Yes. It's basically being part of the family of God is essentially what it is.
And this is the process in getting into that family.
Yes. And how did this first start off? Ruth was bound by law to the mother. Okay, now if I reframe that, right? Worth is defined through repentance and giving up oneself to be bound by law to the mother. Okay, what's the mother? That's the church. Is that not where you...
Flip. Yeah.
You're born again. Where do babies come from, Ben? Mothers. Okay, you're bound by law to the mother. That is the church.
I was just about to say there, because you said for me the answer. I was just about to say I believe Naomi to be the toll and the sacrifice of God's children and the work. And sometimes God does deal bitterly, but it's always to the glory of Him. It's always for God's glory. Timothy Keller famously said, if you knew the mind of God, you wouldn't change a single thing in your life, because everything in your life that happens for a divine reason. And that is what happens with the church, aka Naomi, I believe, in Ruth. It's that symbol. And this is the Old Testament. Let's just remind you, this is the Old Testament. And I think in many of our episodes, we talk about patterns. Here it is again, folks.
Ben, do you want me to blow your mind?
Yes, Josh.
Go to Galatians, New Testament, chapter 5, verse 26 to 27. It's also quoting Isaiah 54. But this is what it said. But the Jerusalem above is free, and she is our mother. For it is written, Rejoice, O barren one who does not bear. Break forth and cry aloud, you who are not in labour. For the children of the desolate one will be more than those of the one who has a husband. Is that not a perfect description of
just
Naomi?
Mind blowing. These books are written years and years and years and years and years apart.
They're also, in their particularities, they also are describing different things, but there are an overarching pattern to this whole thing.
To me personally, the main pattern that I see is, no matter the toll and the struggle of the church, no matter how barren it seems, no matter how bitter you feel your cards have been dealt, the next day, the next year, the next however long will bear fruitful rewards, because as we've discussed this, you're immortal if you're a Christian, if you're a child of God. There's always going to be that reward. Jesus talks about how He's a mansion prepared for each one of us. What is 80 years of pain to an eternity of worship? Naomi is the church, as you've said. And that's the... It's like with David, how I talked about, oh, this is about David, but actually I ended up with talking about Saul. And then in this, we're like, well, Ruth is us, all right? Ruth, we're the foreigners coming into God's kingdom, you know, and some person might say, oh, well, we're all God's children. Well, actually, Jesus says very particularly that if you're not with God, you're against God. You know, you're an enemy of God, and you need to reconcile, and you need to repent, and you know, there's all these big warning things, because then you'll end up in a place that is a bad place. And I think more people need to hear this, because I mean, I don't know, to me, modern churches sort of don't talk about hell enough, in my opinion, especially in this time of crisis and COVID, where a lot of people, especially in terrible places like Afghanistan as well, a lot of people went to see Jesus, and they had a conversation with him. Every single person on this earth is going to have a conversation with Jesus, and that needs people need to think about that, because they don't know when. Just like Naomi didn't know when her husband and her sons were going to be killed. Just as so that she didn't know that Ruth was going to give up everything to follow her. We need to take the good with the bad, is what I'm trying to say. The good things and bad things are unpredictable. Just because the majority of us live, or the people listening to this podcast, the majority of us live pretty much perfect lives, all right? And the only reason why they're imperfect is because of sin, all right? We've all got food, we've all got beds, we've all got necessary things that make our lives generally easy. The reason why we feel it's hard is because hard things, all right, they're unpredictable, just as the good things are, but we're more relaxed with good things. Naomi, church, if your churches fall under issues, every church in the world has fallen under an issue, and that issue has been COVID and stuff, but no matter that, there's always going to be that ultimate reward that is Jesus Christ, because that's the reward that Boaz talks about. Surely your people, surely you will be rewarded. He talks about Ruth. What is Ruth? Ruth represents the foreigner. Ruth represents the outsider, the person who was brought into the God's borders, all right? So when he says you will be rewarded, he's not just talking about Ruth, he's talking about all of the outsiders and the foreigners and the people who are not Christians.
What she represents.
And what's the reward? What's the reward, Josh?
Being united into the family of God.
Who is the reward, Josh? Who is the reward?
The line of Jesus Christ.
Jesus Christ. All right? It's the same reward that Ruth got, same reward that I got, Josh got, that we're all going to get. All right?
And you need to remember, Naomi, who represents the church, right? She wants to be called Mara. Naomi meant pleasant. Mara means bitter. That's how distraught she is. She goes to a foreign country, loses everything. She has these daughter-in-laws. They lose everything. Okay? This isn't a happy situation.
Not at all.
Yet, what have I written here? Is this not the story of the Bible? The church is the barren woman who now, by virtue of Christ's passion, gives birth to many children. That is what Naomi, Ruth, Boaz, and their line represent.
And I think if you read Ruth with this magnifying glass that Josh and I have presented to you now, and you keep that magnifying glass and read just read anything in the Bible, you can see these patterns. That is the pattern of Jesus Christ throughout the Bible. You'll see that Jesus Christ, and it talks about this, Jesus Christ is the same today as he was yesterday and forevermore.
Well, you can see it if you're willing to see.
Exactly. And here, let's just briefly talk about Ruth's sister-in-law.
Oh my goodness,
Orpah. Let's just talk about her.
People
are gonna wonder what happened to her and why doesn't she get the reward. She surely, I mean, let's be honest, Josh. If terrible things happened, would you do what Ruth did? Go with your father-in-law or mother-in-law and just abandon everything, your mother and your father, as it says? I don't think many people would, because they want to stick with what's comfortable. And the last episode with me, why be a Christian, is you gotta leave your comfort zone, because what's comfortable most of the time comes from a place of dark. It comes from a place of evil. Now, being a Christian is not comfortable one bit. You can be comfortable in your faith, but actually living that out is terrible. Look what Ruth is doing. She's working. She works. And it's not even actual work. It's picking the bits and bobs, the corners, the rough cuts to survive. She's picking up these seeds of faith, Josh. That's what she's doing. That's what people do. What is it that Jesus says? Knock and the door will be open to you. Seek and you will find. If you follow the crumb trail, is what I'm trying to say, you will find Jesus. If you're wanting to find Jesus, you will find him. There's not a single person who can honestly say, oh, I tried looking for Jesus. Because every single person who has ever said that at the end of their life has said something completely different. I have a friend who told me a story, and it was about an old man my friend is a Christian, and he says, and he had this uncle, and he says, look, you're a Christian, but if that works for you, it's all right, blah, 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 blah. Anyway, so this guy basically ends up on his deathbed, and he's an hour away from death, basically. And my friend says, you're gonna be in an eternity in a minute, you're gonna see Jesus. And this guy who's been denying it his whole life says, I know there's a God, and there's nothing I can do about it. That wasn't a confession of faith. That wasn't him becoming a Christian, because as far as my friend knows, he went into eternity lost. This guy knew there was going to be something waiting for him. And I know many stories and many people just before death who has this kind of spiritual understanding, and it's why even atheists tell little kids that their granny and granddad go to heaven, because it's easier. It's easier for them to explain rather than witnessing the heartache. But there's truth in that, and we're talking about Orpah. We're talking about Orpah here. She turned and she went back to the land that was comfortable, that at this time was fruitful. Because Bethlehem wasn't.
Well, that's why they went there.
Famine. Exactly. It's something that was an option that provided safekeeping. But then what happens to Moab further down the line?
I'm sure there's many times it got destroyed.
Many, many times. We need to be willing to be like Ruth, to give up what we're comfortable with, to give up the things that tether us to our earthly ways. Because Josh covers this in his materialism episode. What's the point of materialism because it's only a
by definition
it has no point. It's only a surface. It's only scratching the surface of what's it called? The surface of the I don't know. It's only scratching the surface. Because if you stay comfortable in what you have and what is there, and you refuse to think any deeper, if you refuse to think about what happens after death, if you refuse to think about what a soul is, if you refuse to have these conversations about morality, if you're outright refusing these things, then you're staying with a comfortable life. You're being like Oprah.
Oprah.
Orpah. Orpah. You're being like Orpah. And people are going to say, oh, you can't blame her. You can't blame her. That's what I would do, honestly. You can't blame her. That's why it's so tough. That's why it's so... And if you put work and you put sacrifice in, then you will be rewarded. That's basically what God says. If you put the work in for God, if you put the work in for your faith, for your church. Naomi didn't stop working. I know Ruth was picking up the seeds and stuff, but Naomi, as you said, she was in a bad place, like changing her name and wondering what was going to happen, wondering why God wouldn't kill her and take her to be with her husband. Why did God keep her? Why spare her? She wasn't.
God has dealt bitterly with me.
Yeah, she's bitter here, and she's bitter because she's still alive, in my opinion. She's the last one. And she was fully prepared because she told her two daughters-in-law to stay. She was just fully prepared to live on alone and accept that this is what God... And I think churches feel like that sometimes. That, look, this is it. We're alone. This is us. The world is lost. we're just going to wait here, wait to die, basically. Wait for God to take me and be with my sons and my fathers. I feel like some churches feel like that. Like, we're the only ones left. But no. There's always this reward. There's always this miracle. It is a miracle. This miracle that happens all the time, and it's a pattern, and it's never ever
Well,
ever.
Is the church's destiny to die
Yeah.
over and over again, and then I will reiterate the church is the barren woman who by virtue of Christ's passion gives birth to many children. And at the end of the story, you know, all this was fruitful. What she birthed, a son has been born to Naomi. They named him Obed. He was the father of Jesse, the father of David. Now these were the generations of Perez. Perez fathered Hezron. Hezron fathered Ram. Ram fathered Amminadab. Amminadab fathered Nashon. Nashon fathered Salmon. Salmon fathered Boaz. Boaz fathered Obed. Obed fathered Jesse. And Jesse fathered David.
King David. And this was the prequel to the David series. So
The prequel! Oh my goodness.
So that'll about wrap that episode up. Thank you very much for listening. Was a bit rough at the start, but
Thank goodness I prepared for that an hour before.
But my improv is great, you know. So thank you very much. Please
The
comment.
prequel.
Please talk to us. Please listen.
Yes. Goodbye.
Goodbye. Thank you.